Now let us discuss about streamline, streakline and path line over here. So streamline is that imaginary curve on which at a certain particular point P, if you make a tangent, then you will be getting the direction of the flow itself. So that's your streamline. Now your streak line. So for example, you are having your particular dye system over here. Okay, and you are injecting ink. Okay, so at time t equal to 0, you have injected a drop of ink. Then at time t equal to 1, you have injected a drop of ink, and time t equal to 3, you have injected a drop of ink. So the ink are at these particular position, namely 1, 2 and 3. Now what you have to do is you have to join all of them and you will be getting your streak line itself. So that's your streak line itself, or your streak line curve. Then your path line. So path line is nothing but it is the trajectory traced out by a moving fluid particle. Okay, so we are going to discuss this particular problem. Now the aim of the following problem is that in gate examination you are going to find the streamline, and then you are going to find the, what you say, your particularly path line. So that's why this particular question is important over here. So velocity vector is given to you. A is this value. Okay, A is a constant over here in this particular velocity vector. You need to find the equation of the streamline in the xy plane. Then you are going to find the, or you are going to plot the streamline at this particular point 2 and 8. Then what you are going to do is you are going to find the velocity at this particular point. Then you are going to find the position of the particle at time t equal to 6 second. Okay, when initial position is given at time t equal to 0, then what you are going to do is you are going to find the velocity of the particle at this position which you have got in your d part over here. Then you are going to find the equation of the path line of your particle at this particular position at time t equal to 0. Okay, so first thing is the equation of streamline. As I've told you that streamline is nothing but an imaginary curve at a particular point P. If I'm making any tangent, then it will give me the direction of the flow itself. Okay, so from this definition I can say that streamline is nothing but it is the slope of the xy curve. So this is the streamline. Now in order to have this particular slope, as you can see that I'm given with a velocity vector over here, v vector equal to u I cap plus v j cap, and you know that u is nothing but dx by dt, and v is nothing but dy by dt. So if you are taking v upon u, then you'll be getting back your dy by dx. So I can say that this is the equation of the streamline. Just you have to do here is you have to put the values over here of u, v and u. So value of v is nothing but ay, and value of u is nothing but ax given over here. Then cut the constant and equate to the following expression, and you have to integrate it. So dy upon y equal to minus dx upon x. So this will give me the equation of the streamline, which is nothing but xy equal to e to the power of some constant, which is nothing but another constant itself. So this is the equation of the streamline itself. Pretty much simple. So first thing is done. Second thing is you have to plot the streamline at this particular position 2 and 8. So in order to get this streamline at this particular position, we have to get the value of this constant, because as we can see over here, xy equal to constant is nothing but this particular curve over here. So if you are having your constant as 1 over here, then it will vary as follow. If you are having your value of constant 2, then it will vary as follow. So this is the equation of the streamline I have plotted over here for various value of c. Okay, so these are the varying values of c over here, the constant. Now in order to have the constant at this particular point, what I can do is I know that xy equal to constant, so I can just put the values over here. So here x coordinate is given to me as 2, y is 8, so it will be equal to constant. So constant value is coming out to be 16. So streamline equation is nothing for this guy over here is xy equal to 16. So I can say that this is the particular streamline which I will be getting. So it is nothing but xy equal to 16. You can use Desmos to plot the curve also. Now in this particular section, as you can see, he is finding the velocity of this particle at the point 2 and 8. You know that velocity of the particle is given to you as follow. Just you have to put the value 2 and 8 over here. So a2 I cap minus 8 a j cap. So a is given to you as 0.3 second inverse over here. You have to put it over here and you have to get your value of velocity vector, which I'm not going to show it over here. Okay, you can do the calculation by yourself. Then position at time t equal to 6 second. The particle is located at 2, 8 at time t equal to 0 second. You have to find the position of the particle. As you can see, velocity vector is given to you as follow: ax I cap minus ay j cap. Now in order to find the position of the particle which is defined in the xy plane by x and p and x and y coordinate over here, what I can do is I can just define this velocity vector as follow. I know it from the basic knowledge itself. I know that u is written as dx by dt and v is written as dy by dt. So here if I remove the value of or substitute the value of u and v over here, then I will be getting a parametric equation of x itself and a parametric equation of y itself. That will give me the particular values of x and y at a particular point of time 6 itself. So you have to do it by yourself. So dx by dt equal to ax, dy by dt equal to minus ay. Integrate the following and you will be having dx equal to ax dt. Just put x over here, just variable separable over here, you have to do a dt, and you are left with x equal to e to the power x, sorry, ln of x equal to a t. Then you have to take the appropriate limit also over here. So you are proceeding from time t equal to 0 to so some time t over here, and you are proceeding from x equal to 0 to some time x over here. So from here I can say that I will be having ln of x by x naught equal to a into t, and I will be having x equal to x naught e to the power a into t. Similarly for y I will be having y equal to y naught e to the power minus a into t itself. This is the solution which I will be getting it over here. Okay, x naught y naught are given to me. X naught y naught are given to me as 2 and 8 in the question itself. Now just you have to put the value of t over here, which is 6 second, and you will be getting the value of your x. So this will be the position of your x, this will be the position of your y, which is nothing but y naught e to the power minus a into 6. You can calculate it in using the calculator. I don't have the calculator with me now. Okay, so this is the positions, xy position of your particle. Another thing is saying that you have to find the velocity of the particle at this particular position, which we have recently find it over here. So you know that I'm having these position x equal to x naught, which is nothing but 2 0.3 into 6. So this is the first position of my particle, this is the second position of the particle. So these are the positions of my particle in the form of x and y. Then in order to find the velocity vector, I know that this is the velocity vector given to me. Okay, I have to put the values of x and y over here. So just put the value of x over here, put the value of y over here, you'll be getting the velocity vector back. Then he's saying that you have to find the equation of the path line located at this particular point 2a t equal to 0. Okay, and he's saying that it is same as the equation of the streamline. Let us see. So now in order to find the equation of the path line, as you can see that I am having what is a parametric equation of x and y over here. So from here I can say that I am having a parametric equation of x and y, which is as follow: x equal to x naught e to the power at, y equal to y naught e to the power minus at. So in order to get back the path line equation, what you have to do is you have to get rid of this time over here. Okay, you have to get rid of this time over here. You have to convert your parametric equation to the path line equation by getting rid of this time over here, because as you know that path line is nothing but the curve traced by your particle itself. Okay, so here what I can do over here is just I can multiply both of them over here. So xy must be equal to, this is my first equation, this is my second equation. If I multiply both of them, I can get rid of this e to the power at. So it will be equal to x naught y naught, and x naught and y naught is given to you as 2 and 8, which is nothing but 16. So the fourth question is also being proved, that equation of the path line which I'm getting over here is nothing but the equation of the streamline. Okay, it is same as that of the equation of the streamline. So this is the equation of the path line also, this is the equation of the streamline also. Now the footnote over here is that in order to get your path line over here, what you have to do is you have to just get rid of this t over here. Okay, just get rid of this time over here, and you'll be getting back your path line equation over here. Let us discuss about the stress field or the stresses basically. So as you can see that I have taken a particular area over here, I have taken a body over here, and I have marked a very small area delta A on this particular body, and a force is inclined in the certain way over here. Okay, now what I have to do is I have to make two directions over here, namely the normal direction and the tangential direction. So this normal direction is normal contact to this particular point O, which we are taking over here, and this tangential direction is nothing but a tangent going at this particular point O over here. So from this I can infer the info that there will be two component of the stresses. First one is the normal stress and second one is the tangential stress itself. You know the stress is nothing but it is force per unit area. So force associated with the normal stress is nothing but the normal force, the normal component of the particular force which we are encountering over here. So you just have to resolve the particular force into the normal direction and you will be getting the normal force. Similarly, if you resolve this particular force in the tangential direction, you will be getting what is the tangential force, and the stresses associated will be tangential force upon the contact area itself, that will give you the tangential stress itself. Now here I am having 9 component of the stresses over here. This is the tensor notation. So how we are going to define it as follow, that you are having two indices over here, A and B. First indice, first subscript, and the second subscript over here. So this first subscript indicates the plane on which the stress is acting. For example, let us say that we are having this particular plane ABCD. Now this ABCD plane, if I make a contact normal over here, it is going in the x direction. So this is subscript A will take the value of x. Okay, the plane normal. Okay, now let us say this subscript B. This subscript B is nothing but the direction of our stress. For example, let us say that I am taking this particular stress TXY. So I can say that this stress is acting in the y direction, and the plane he is acting is ABCD, because this x is showing that this particular plane ABCD is having the contact normal in the direction of x-axis itself. Okay guys, now let us discuss about the viscosity. So viscosity is nothing but it is the resistance which your fluid provides you when you are changing the shape of the fluid itself. Okay, when you are moving your fluid itself, so that's your viscosity. So it is a fluid property whose effect can be understood if and only if your fluid is in the motion itself. So that's your particular viscosity. I have written down the formal definition over here which you can see. Now let us discuss about Newton postulate over here. So as I was telling you that shear tau is nothing but the shear force upon area itself. Now Newton have postulated it as follow, that my shear stress is related to the velocity gradient as follow, that shear stress is directly proportional to my velocity gradient, and this velocity is nothing but the velocity in the x direction. Now in order to remove this particular proportionality sign, he have put a constant over here which we call as coefficient of viscosity. Now this coefficient of viscosity is different for different fluids, and I can say that it is a fluid property. So coefficient of viscosity depends upon its state also. Now fluid following this particular law are called as the Newtonian fluid, and fluids which are not following this particular law are called as the non-Newtonian fluid. So those fluids who are not following these are called as non-Newtonian fluid, and the law which they are following is as follow, that tau equal to k du by dy n minus 1 du by dy. Here as you can see that there is a power associated with your velocity gradient over here, and this whole term k into du by dy n minus 1 is called as the apparent viscosity. So you can say that with the variation of this particular power n, I can classify my non-Newtonian fluid in various of the categories. Now let us discuss about this particular categorization. So first one is that pseudoplastic. So fluids in which the apparent viscosity is decreasing with the increase of the deformation rate. That is your n is less than 1 over here. Okay, for example, your colloidal suspension or your polymer solution. Okay, now in dilations, if the apparent viscosity increases with the increase of deformation rate, that is your n is greater than that of 1 itself, then I call it as diluent fluid. So for example, your suspension of starch and sand itself. So it is a great example of your diluents. Now let us have the discussion over these Bingham plastic fluids. Now these Bingham plastic fluids are those who act as a solid until a minimum yield stress is applied. Okay, so up to a particular value of tau they act as a solid, and after this particular value of tau, after exceeding this particular value of tau, they shows the linear variation of tau with the velocity gradient over here. Okay, so I can say that Binghams are those fluids that behave as a solid until a minimum yield stress, and when this yield stress is exceeded, they exhibit a linear relationship in between the stress and the rate of deformation. So for example, your clay, drilling mud, or your toothpaste itself. Now let us find this solution of the following problem. As you can see in this particular problem, we are given with the two cylinders, namely cylinder number 1, cylinder number 2. The inner cylinder is having a radius of 0.12 and the outer cylinder is having a radius of 0.13. The inner cylinder is being rotated at the rate of 2 pi radian per second, and in order to maintain this particular angular velocity, we have given it as a external tau of 0.88 Newton meter. The height of the following cylindrical system is nothing but 0.3 meter itself. Now here he is asking you that he have put a fluid in between both of the cylinder over here. You need to find the value of this mu over here. As we can see that tau is nothing but the torque which we are applying in order to move this cylinder. And this tau will be resisted by this fluid over here. That's how we'll be getting coefficient of viscosity coming into our play. So let us say that I'm assuming a very small fluid particle over here, which is of the shape of circle itself. And this particular fluid particle, this arbitrary fluid particle, is resisting our torque over here. Okay, by a force F, by a force tangential F, which I'm calling it as Ft. It is at a distance r from the center itself. So I can say that tau is nothing but r into F perpendicular, the tangential nature of the force. So r is nothing but it is given to you from the center itself as arbitrary distance r. F perpendicular is nothing but r F tangential. You know that shear stress is nothing but tangential force upon contact surface area on which it is acting. Contact surface area is nothing but the circumference of our fluid element into the height of our cylinder. So that is F tangential. So F tangential will be equal to tau star 2 pi r into h itself. So that's how you can substitute the value of F tangential over here into the following system, and you will be landing up with the following value tau, which is nothing but 0.88 equal to tau star 2 pi r into h itself. Now tau star is related to the change in velocity as follow. It is mu du by dx. Now in our system, as you can see, I'm proceeding from the inner cylinder to the outer cylinder over here. So what I can say over here is that I'm proceeding from the inner cylinder to the outer cylinder. Inner cylinder is having high velocity and outer cylinder is having lower velocity. As you can see that Newton have postulated as follow, that tau is defined from this particular axis system over here. 0, 0 is marked at this point and you are proceeding from here to upper side whose velocity is u. This velocity was u. This upper plate velocity was u itself. So you are proceeding from here to here. Now in this case we are proceeding from here to here. So in our case there should be a -1 over here. Okay. And because we are proceeding in the r direction, instead of having x over here, we should be having a dr over here. So just you have to put this particular formula over here itself. Keeping in mind that in the Newton formula, he was proceeding from the bottom of the stationary plate to the moving plate itself. That's how he was defining tau equal to mu du by dx. Okay, he was considering his origin system to be at the bottom of the plate, of the stationary plate. Okay, but we have considered our origin system near to our moving plate over here. So we are going from moving plate to the stationary plate. So that's why we are taking a -1 over here. Okay, then you have to put it over here. Then you will be having 0.88 2 pi h dr by r square mu dv and a -1 associated with the following expression. So what I have done over here, I have just simplified the following expression over here. Okay, just I have written it over here also. Then you have to simplify it that I am proceeding from the inner side to the outer side. Okay, so you can just proceed from the inner side whose velocity is r into omega to the outer side whose velocity is essentially 0. Then you are proceeding with from the inner side whose inner radius is 0.12 meter to outer radius which is 0.13, outer cylindrical radius. Then you have to simplify this particular problem over here, integral over here, and you can find the value of mu. Okay, so just use your calculator and the standards value over here. Okay, so you'll be having the value of mu as 0.397 PAS. So that will be the solution. I'm not doing the calculative part over here. We are all mature enough to do our calculation by our own hands. Okay, I've given you the limits. I've given you why we are taking a negative one over here. Okay, I've given you the whole mechanics of the problem over here, and this is the particular solution. Just you have to do is the integration. Now let us talk about the possible classification of continuum fluid mechanics over here. So now it is being divided into two parts over here, inviscid and the viscous part. So inviscid part is that part in which you are not considering any kind of viscosity whatsoever, and viscous part is that part in which you are considering the viscosity. So I can say that this is the real life and this is the ideal case itself. Now it's being further divided into many parts over here. You just can read out. Now I will be going into the detail of every part over here. So first is the laminar and the turbulent flow. So laminar flows are those flow in which you are not seeing any kind of intermixing of the fluid particles itself. Fluid particles are moving in a very smooth layer or laminas itself. Whereas in your turbulent flow, as you can see over here, there is an intermixing going on over here. Okay, so why there is an intermixing? There is an intermixing because of the fluctuating velocity components in the turbulent flow over here. So you can just give one value of the velocity and you can display that this is the velocity of my particular flow in the case of laminar flow itself. But in the turbulent velocity, you know that you are having, there are two component of the velocity itself. First one is the average component of the velocity, which you have given in the laminar flow itself, which you know from the laminar flow itself. And because there is an intermixing going on, okay, so there is a continuous change in the velocity itself. So I can say that along with the mean or average velocity component, there is a fluctuating component of the velocity. So my velocity is changing in the space and in the time itself. Okay, so this is the turbulent flow. Now, so now let us talk about the compressible and incompressible flows over here. So compressible flow is nothing but a flow in which your density is varying. Okay, and an incompressible flow is that flow in which your density is pretty much constant. Now the question rises is that when should we be considering our flow as compressible flow or as an incompressible flow? As a general thumb of rule, you should be knowing that if my Mach number is less than that of 0.3, then I should be considering my flow as an incompressible flow itself. If my Mach number is greater than that of 0.3, then my flow will be compressible flow itself. Mach number is nothing but it is the velocity of your object relative to your fluid, or velocity of your fluid relative to object, or velocity of your flow speed upon the speed of sound itself. Okay, so it's a dimensionless number. Okay, we'll be talking about it in the later slides also, in the advanced course also. So that's your compressible and incompressible flow. Now here, as you can see, because I haven't taught you about the isentropic relations yet, I've taken Mach number of 0.3 and I've calculated the value of rho 2 by rho 1 itself. So this is the initial density I'm having. Rho 1 is the initial density I'm having, and the ratio by using the isentropic calculator over here of density 2 upon density 1, I'm getting as 0.98 if I'm taking Mach number as 0.3. So as you can see, density 2 is 0.98 times of density 1 itself. So here, if I calculate the particular percentage of a density itself, then I can say that there is a 5% variation, less than 5% variation going on over here. So I can say that pretty much my flow is incompressible over here, because the density variation is coming under 5% itself. Now here I have taken Mach number to be equal to 0.4. Here, as you can see, if you calculate delta rho by rho, okay, as you can see that I have calculated rho 2 by rho 1 ratio over here. So rho 2 by rho 1 here is coming out to be 0.92. So the variation of density is greater than that of 5% itself. So if it is greater than that of 5% itself, then I can say that the flow is compressible. Okay, so as a general thumb of rule, if your Mach number is less than 0.3, incompressible, greater than 0.3, compressible. Okay, now let us have the discussion of internal and external flows. So flow which are completely bounded by the solid surface itself are called the internal flow itself. Okay, so for example, passing of a fluid inside that of a duct. Okay, you are passing water inside that of a duct is considered as to be a internal flow, because your fluid is bounded by boundaries over here, which is nothing but your pipe. Okay, now external flows are those flows in which your body is kept under a moving fluid, or your body is moving under a fluid itself. Okay, for example, here as you can see that I have taken an aerodynamic duct over here. So the flow is going inside the duct, showing that here in this particular regime it is the internal flow. And now my duct, as you can see, is stationary over here, but my fluid at the outside is moving in this particular direction, and my duct is kept inside this moving fluid. So I can say that this duct is kept inside moving fluid, so there is an external flow going outside the duct over here. Fine with that? So that's your external flow. Now let us talk about very important thing over here, which is the Reynolds number and its limit. Because it's an introductory level class over here, I will be giving you just the basic of the Reynolds number and the limit associated with it. So Reynolds number is nothing but it is the ratio of the inertial force to that of the viscous force itself. This is the formula of the Reynolds number. It is rho vd upon mu itself. Rho is nothing but the fluid density, v is nothing but the flow velocity, d is nothing but the characteristic linear dimension you are taking, and mu is nothing but the dynamic viscosity. So for a closed channel flow or for an internal flow, if your Reynolds number is less than that of 2100, then you can consider the flow pretty much to be as laminar flow. If your Reynolds number is in between 2100 to 4000, then it will be a transient flow. I haven't shown you about the transient flow in the previous slides. Also, we'll be talking in the advanced lectures itself about the transient flow. And then we are having the Reynolds number greater than that of 4000, then we can consider the flow to be a turbulent flow itself. Now for open channel flow, or when your body is submerged into a moving liquid, or your body is moving in a stationary liquid, or there is a relative motion going in between your body and the fluid itself, then we are having a Reynolds number called as critical Reynolds number, which is the deciding factor itself. So if your Reynolds number is less than that of 5 into 10 to the power 5, then you can consider the flow to be laminar flow. If your Reynolds number is greater than that of 5 into 10 to the power 5, then you can consider it to be a turbulent flow itself. So this is called as the critical Reynolds number, where your flow is transiting from the laminar regime to that of the what you said turbulent regime itself. So that's the Reynolds number and its limits. So hope guys you have loved the lecture. Like the lecture, please give it a thumbs up, like, share and subscribe my channel. I will be frequently releasing more videos on various of the topic regarding the gates itself. So I hope I will be covering all of the syllabus over here on the YouTube itself. So we'll meet you in the next lecture. Until then, goodbye guys. Thank you.